Oh my God, he's back again. Brothers, sisters, everybody's saying, yeah, yeah. Gonna bring the flavor, show you how. Got a question for you, gotta answer now. Yeah, yeah. Is he original? Sort of. Is he the only one? No. No. Is this sexual? No, not really. Is it everything you need? You gotta rock your body now. Everybody, yeah. Rock your body, yeah. Everybody, I am back. Let's go. All right, I'm just warning you, this is a weird video. If you didn't catch it, I'm in a weird energy. I think that happens every time I record now. Hi everybody. If you're new to my channel, sorry. This should be interesting for you. Enjoy. I promise I don't bite. Anyway, this video we're doing some animation. We are animating. Well, hold up right there. This guy's mentioned multiple times that he has other videos in the works. Something about Trip, something about other fan art drawings, other sketchbook tours, and now he's telling me that he's not gonna do those videos, that he's doing something else first? What the fuck is this? I am outraged. Well, don't throw a wobbler there, Pip. Don't tell me I shouldn't be outraged. I'm outraged. Now, can he sit here and get away with this? I don't think that's quite fair, do you? No, I don't think so at all. Well, hold on just a minute. You're getting carried away again. This guy might have a very good reason for lying to us. Do you ever think about that? He might want to show off his creativity a bit, you know. Put some other content on the channel. Show people that he's not just a one-trick pony. You know, all the usual stuff that makes no fucking sense and people seem to care about a lot. Okay, I'll listen this time. But if this happens again, I swear, I'm gonna write a nice, very deliberately mean message in the comments below this video. I'll do it. I swear to God I will. It doesn't matter if no one ever writes down there. I'll write down there, and that'll be the only comment he sees, and it'll ruin his day. I'm gonna do it. So you better hope you don't do it again, friend. We're watching you. Carefully. That's a boy, Pip. Good job. I'm proud of you for seeing things clearly. Anyway, I guess let's see what he's got to do today. Might be interesting at least.
So we're making our channel intro. Spoiler, there will be 2 parts. I was ambitious with it, and since I don't animate a lot, and I learned a lot during this process, which we'll talk about in the video, that I realized that this will be a 2-parter, just so I can make it as full of video as I wanted to. All that to say is, we're animating this time. Enjoy. Maybe I'll show some older animations I've done in the past at a future point, but yeah. Hope you liked the video. If you do, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and Quoth agrees. Like, comment, subscribe. He's adamant. Don't let him down. But until next time, let's get into the video. All right, welcome in from the chaos. Let's get started. So as I said in this video, we are animating. We're animating. Ironically, I don't know, it feels like you're making the Mona Lisa to make Elmo or something, but I knew I was gonna use an animated goat or like a chibi or like a, you know, more cartoon stylized style of goat. But in order to figure out what the full proportions of a goat were, I decided that I would draw a goat first. So I'm drawing a goat relatively, you know, proportionally and realistically. I don't go much detail beyond this, but I go to this and then I just totally break him apart. He never stood a chance. some things to talk about in this video. At the end, I will have a marker denoting like the amount of strokes, the amount of time this is taking me. I want to intentionally try to add that every time because I think it's interesting, but I often forget, so sorry. But this in particular, again, yeah, we're animating this time. I have done animation before, nothing super in depth. A lot of animation that I've done has been pixel art, walk cycles, or a few, different types of animation. I've done, actual animation too, but nothing super detailed. This is going to be the most significant, realistically, by the end of it. What I knew, I guess, going into this, like I said, I wanted to make an intro for the channel. I found that a lot of times when I'm like, I do my weird intro skits and things, so yeah, you're welcome. But often for the transition point, if you would have noticed in the last one, I made a filler video that I was like, I didn't know how to blend these together, so I'm adding this because I needed something. That's where the intro is going to feel purposeful. So after that, I was like, I need an intro. I can't keep putting it off. So this intro in particular is me making a goat. He's going to be pulling our logo in. Hello, Quoth. He sleeps right here, just as a reference. So I'm trying to get him to calm down so he doesn't make too much noise. Yeah, we're making a goat. We're pretty much done with the base stylized concept. As you can see, I skewed the hell out of him. Kept shrinking him, making his legs different, making his head bigger, his eyes bigger, his ear bigger, just trying to goof up his proportions so he felt more cartoony. Like I said, I wanted him to be kind of cute and derpy and chunky. So there's the two together, which is pretty funny, I think. But yeah, here we go. Here we go with the first parts of animation. So how do you really do animation? Well, in other programs, you have multiple layers where you do each thing, or can do each thing. For example, like as you just see here, and it's going to look a little rough. Forgive my recording of this because it's the first time I had really done it with this program, or really in a long time. And it was a large learning curve, but there's a lot I have to say up front, so we're going to burn through this to get to that. Either way. So as you see, I'm drawing legs. I looked up the base animation for a goat's walk cycle. Not a video, but just like images. It turned out to be roughly 8 images that took account of all 4 legs walking in a full rotational pattern. And then I drew that out. And then I modified, each over time to refine that so it looked like, you could track the foot. And as we proceed, you'll notice that you can track the foot as it moves through the rotation. It looks fairly smooth. This would be an 8 frames per second animation. By the end of it, I wanted some more variety so it didn't seem so minimal, so it didn't seem so repetitive, that it turned into a 24 frame. So 3 sets of 8. The walk is roughly the same, but you'll notice as we go along, I'll throw in shoulder rotation, head movements, tail movements. Right now, we're just refining the leg motion, which takes quite a long time, clearly. As you can see, there's the faint visible lines in the background. If you've never done animation before, those would be called onion skins. Like the layers of an onion, you're seeing the layers of the animation. So basically, every faint image back there is the other drawing, right? As that leg moves forward, as that leg moves backwards. So, like I said, to get the base walk, there are 8 drawings. Right now, the body looks identical. The only thing moving is the legs. And again, I expand on that to account for other points of animation. Things I didn't learn in the beginning, which I wish I would have known, is in Procreate, which is what I draw in, so that's what I used to animate in, because I had done it very minimally before and knew I could use it. In Procreate, you don't have the same style of layers as you would in other programs necessarily. So, like I said, often when you animate, you could do the whole body on a layer, and you could do like 8 layers of the body, right? Or just 1 layer counting the foot for the body not moving. And then you could have the legs on a separate layer, so there's like hierarchies. Think of them as like, rows. And each new frame is like a column point. In Procreate, you can't do that. When you plan out your animation, what you're doing is you're doing multiple layers. And we're gonna get here in a second, so I'll pivot real quick. But as you can see, this is blurry. So throughout this, I've added points where I took small videos on my phone or something, like here momentarily, where you can see basically the animation more in real time, so you have a sense of where we're at in the scale of things, because when it's moving this quick, maybe it's hard to get a scale of that. So here you go. I didn't plan it out great, so I could have recorded on my iPad the whole time. Something else I didn't think about till later, so this is on my phone, hence the quality change. But that's where he's looking right now. He's got shoulder rotation. Now we're gonna add some tail action. But yeah, like I said, I didn't know in Procreate how to do all of this, so I learned halfway through and then was kicking myself because it made way more work. Point learned is that in Procreate you can animate with groups, and that serves a similar point. So I could put a layer for each image, right, in a different group. Didn't know that. Caused me much more hassle. And what that basically turned out to mean is that every time I did it, and it gets more complicated as I go, right? I just did the tail, I've done the shoulder, I'm gonna move the back hips now, then I'm gonna go into moving the actual back and belly sections, then we move into the ears, the eyes, there's some face twitches, the head bobs. Here, and we're not gonna get too heavy into this, I'll stop so you can hear. So that is Keynote. Keynote is where I went to throw all this animation together. So I did the goat by itself, threw it into a different program that I knew I could use to make an intro. In Keynote, and again, I won't talk about it too much in this video, but I will talk about it probably in the second video more directly. But in Keynote is where I assembled everything. That's when you see all those word graphics that'll slide in from the sides and everything, and that's where I demoed it. I'll have maybe one more later that's a little more refined. Again, we'll talk about it later, but it's similar to layers in your animating. First time I ever used Keynote. But that's where we're throwing this all together. So I wanted to show that example, and all the noises were me just doing mouth sound effects, so you had a rough idea of what I was going for. That was my original rough. I did the original rough of the animation, then we did the original rough of the intro, and then I go, after I realized, okay, we're on track, it's a provable idea, so let's move forward with it, because this all takes a very long time. So now we will go back to the animation. So we're back in Procreate here, we're animating. Now we're getting some ear movements. You know, with the walk cycle, it's very difficult. That's why I knew I wanted to look up references for a goat, starting with the full frame of a goat, so I knew how their shoulders or hips and stuff looked. And then we're animating that now. So we're in Procreate, we're doing a walk cycle. I knew I wanted to not make it look stiff, hence why I did the shoulder, the body, the tail, why I eventually go from 8 frames to 16 to 24, because I want to have more variety, right? So basically this walk cycle, as you saw when he walks on the screen, he's dragging the word goat behind him, although it didn't look like he's dragging it yet. As he's doing that, that animation is going to loop over and over again, right? So 24 frames per second, it's 3 counts of 8, right? So it's literally 3 seconds of animation. To put this in perspective for you, I've spent a bunch of time to get to this point for 3 seconds. 3 seconds of video, which is why animation is expensive and very, very tedious. Why I learned a long time ago it wasn't for me as a full pursuit, but fun to play with and fun to use. So, and sorry if I'm rambling, I guess there's a lot to say because we've never done animation before. But yeah, as you can see, we're doing ears, we're playing with tail movements and things like that. But yeah, so again, you're doing all this for 3 seconds of animation. So I knew it would feel repetitive. Basically, I would have had 1 second that would have repeated indefinitely, or I could get 3, so you get some variation as you're watching it, which is why I went with that. So if you'll watch through this, you'll notice like the tail flicks, and then every once in a while it gets a big flick, and that's to show that variation. Similar things will happen with the ears and the blinking, things like that. The overall walk is the same because I didn't want to go too crazy, because we do eventually color this too, and tracking the colors and everything is a bitch. So here I've got to a point where I was getting happy with the animation. I liked it. I knew I wanted to put a collar on him because he's going to drag the word goat behind him. So I put a collar on him. I design a collar. I add it in a new layer to rough it out. Then I copy it and I ghost over it, right? You can see the faint layer in the background of the goat. He's faded compared to the collar, or the hame, I guess, as you would do with a horse. And I edited the collar every single frame so it looked like it was moving appropriately with his body, right? I shifted it around. So it's going to look really sketchy. Again, basically what we're doing here, kind of like any drawing, is we're going through doing all the roughs. Now we're refining moving more body parts, adding the secondary functionality and the secondary animations like the tail and the ears, right? Beyond just the walking and the base body bobbing. And now we're tying it together. So once that's all done, then we'll go and refine all those drawings, make them really clean so they're not too sketchy. And then we'll add colors. But we're adding the collar, we're adding a rope knot tie, and then we'll draw on the rope after that. So the rope will be kind of bobbing, and we'll eventually loop it to the word goat. So that's where we're at now. Let me do a coffee sip because I've talked a lot. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so things to talk about, I suppose. So as you're doing animation, there's several things to keep account of, right? So simple movements, maybe like the eye closing, I could have one frame where it's open, I could have one frame where it's closed. If I do that, because of the speed that I'm doing it at, right? I'm doing this at 8 frames a second. If I did it, let's say, at 4 frames a second, it would look insanely fast, right? Or I could slow it down to 12 or 24 or what have you. Now, in my 8 frames a second, it's a moderate speed, not too fast, not too slow necessarily. The more frames you have, like if you did 24 per second, I'm not, right? I'm doing 8 frames or 24 over 3 seconds, different. So if I did 24 frames per second, and I wanted to look really smooth, which is what you do to make it look really smooth, I would have to have more frames between each movement. So I'd have to do a lot more smoothing and blending to make that motion look smooth. In 8 frames, as we've done, the ear, that front ear, will look very floppy and it kind of bounces around. That's what we're working on now to refine that. And here we're gonna go throw a goat in there and we'll end up throwing a rope in. But certain point I was making is that certain movements you'll want to have fewer frames, certain movements or secondary motions you're going to want more frames to account for a smooth transition to make it look fluid, right? Like the eye could be fast, or if you want a slow blink, then you'll add a middle line or middle close, right? You'll be open, partially open, closed. If you want it really smooth, maybe you have a middle on the open as well and then a full open, or you'll just go full open and make it blink fast. So these are all things you think about. And as I'm going through this, I'm playing around with it. Here's another demonstration of we're at a point that the goat's walk is good. I record this on my iPad, hence the weird movement around with the panning there. You'll see more of that. And then I tied him to the word goat. Now, I believe we're going to take it back into Keynote, and test it. No sound this time, so I can continue to talk. As you can see, he's pulling it in. We've added a shadow in the background to account for like dirt as it's pulling along. It's fairly effective here. Pretty simple. He's just pulling it across. I've added some colors now as well, so you'll see the letters will be colorized in a second here when they drop in. Decided I want the E to be goofy. So yeah, that's where we're at in Keynote. So we'll go back into Procreate. Like I said, we've tested that. And now we're gonna start working on the dirt. So I wanted the word goat to feel like it is embedded in the ground, really being pulled. So I've made a dirt mound that would be generated as the T gets dragged through. So you can see we wrapped a rope around the T so it's being pulled with the rope. And we're basically making a motion with the dirt so that it poofs, moves over, gets thin, shoots out. Poofs, moves over, shoots out. And it's constantly repeating. Once we get it fully made and we slow down, we'll show it here. And what you should be able to really see, I think I did a decent job, is that you can follow that same bulk of dirt the whole way through. You'll see it form, move down, shrink, and shoot out the end. And as it shoots out the end, obviously, there's going to be another poof coming. So it's a continuous flowing pattern. That's the goal. That's what we went for. This was fun. I'd never done anything like this before, but this was fun because it was so amorphous, right? You're kind of restricted with the goat where it's got to look like a goat. It's got to keep those proportions, where this dirt, I knew I could do whatever the hell I wanted. I wasn't restricted to bones and flesh. All I really had to think about was, okay, it's got to seem somewhat believable as dirt. It's got to keep a level with the ground line or the horizon. So it looks like it's tracking behind. You know, I had to make sure that dirt didn't get big and stay big either. Otherwise, it would just disappear when it hits the end unless I want to do 1,000,000 frames. The dirt I did in 6 frames. My idea was it would move faster. Plus, I could also track it to the overall 24 count. I would just have it repeat 4 times versus 3, so everything's still lined up. That's basically what's happening. What that also allowed me to do is that I also allowed for more variation in the overall animation, because the dirt is not directly tied to the goat's walk cycle. So every time the goat takes a step forward, the dirt would be at a different point, basically. That'll make it feel more dynamic and not so repetitive. Again, that was kind of my goal, because I knew the goat would walk in and then he could walk off. I guess also worth saying is the reason this is 2 parts is this is only half of the animation. The intention of the goat, or what I'm planning for, is he walks in, he stops, he sees a flower, he eats it, he chews it, he looks at the camera, he buys, and then he continues to walk off screen. Then the rest of the logo and everything drops in. So we'll use this animation, we'll cut to another one, use this one again to get him off the screen. That's what's going to happen. But again, I knew animation was slow. I didn't really think I would be able to get both done in a week, but we did our best. I mocked out the secondary one, but alas, it didn't get there. So this is it. This is the dirt, fully colored and all drawn up. I think it turned out pretty nice. The goat is in the same spot, obviously, but I think the dirt turned out nice. Like I said, you can see it really moving from right to left, as you should be able to see here. Yeah, and I'm happy with how that turned out. Again, never done anything like that before. Even as much as the coloring was fun, because I sketched the dirt, but I sketched it in rough form, so filling in those blank spots in the middle was kind of interesting. Yeah, I guess let's drink again. So, what comes next? I believe as of now, it's hard for me to see because I have a little bit smaller on my screen, but I believe we're coloring in the rope, defining that shape, and I think we're starting to do some cleanup work here. Yep, that's right. We're going through, we're cleaning this all up. This is one of the points where I knew that I made work significantly harder for myself. Like I said, if I would have grouped this, I could have been really smart. Where, like I said, the base goat animation, the body and the legs are very repetitious. So every 8 counts for 24 frames, that body walk cycle repeats. The tail is separate, and the head is separate. The collar is linked to the body. The rope is also separate. If I would have grouped this properly, then I basically would have only had to do custom animations, like for like 8 frames maybe in total, maybe 12 to 16 roughly alterations where I'm like changing the head slightly. But because I was stupid, I didn't know things before I knew them, I have 24 individual frames that I technically had to clean up, which takes a very, very long time and made this a pain in the fucking ass. Same thing happens when I go to coloring. I had to color 24 individual frames. Now, I tried to cheat for myself. What I decided to do is I did the first original 8, right? I did the first original 8, fully cleaned. Head cleaned, ears, tail, legs, make sure everything's nice and neat. It's not too scratchy looking. After that, I copied those elements and I put them above the next layer that I knew I had to work on, let's say frame 9, right? From there, if there was any variations with the tail or the head, I just had to clean those up. Or I could reuse elements from the first frame, right? So the first count of 8, his ears are super floppy. The second count, they're not. They twitch a little, that's it. The third count, they don't move at all. So I had to play with those variations, but I was able to reuse the body element, so I didn't have to fully clean it every time. That also helped to make it look more consistent across every frame, where there's not as much change. Sometimes that change is nice, again, it gives more variation, but I needed to get this done. I was done working on it. I had already spent several days. So that's kind of where we're at. You see, I originally played with a little bit of color there. Wasn't super keen on it. Again, because the rope was specific to each frame, I also had to cut out the rope because I wanted the rope to actually change every single 24 frames. So I had to cut out the rope and paste it again into the correct new cleaned up version as well, which is kind of what I'm working on. I also decided to give him a twitch kind of face where he like wrinkles his face up a little bit and pulls his ear back. I kind of like how that turned out. He flares his nostrils a little bit too. That's in the second count of 8, and I like how that turned out quite a lot. I think it's just a cute little face quirk. But yeah, here we're just cleaning everything up, trying to refine. It's tedious, man. Animation is a lot of fun, but it is a pain in the ass. So I hope you like it. Like I said, this is going to be the channel intro. It will be for every video going forward. Well, maybe not the next one, part 2. But after that, it'll be in every video. So I wanted to look really nice. I wanted it to feel polished, have a lot of character, have a lot of movement. The second animation will feel more dynamic. We can talk about that obviously in the second video. But even this first one, I want to feel dynamic, and that's why I was intentional on making it a second part and knowing that. You know, once I got, let's say I usually record these videos and do my editing on the weekends, and then I post my videos on Tuesdays. So once I got to like Friday, I knew there was no way in hell I was going to get the second animation done, and I wasn't going to kill myself attempting to. So I knew in order to have that second animation be the way I wanted it to be and show even more expression, even more character in the goat, I knew it would be good for a separate video. But yeah, throughout this entire process, I guess things to account for things that didn't stay, as we're just kind of coloring in here. Nothing too crazy to say about that. Like I said, I did the majority of my animating on 8 frames per second. The dirt is the only thing in this animation that plays a different speed. That's on 6 frames. Throughout that process, I'm actually constantly going through and regularly going through, especially when I'm starting the animation, you know, when I'm getting the original groundwork. I'm going through and playing with different speeds. So I'll go down to 6, down to 4, might go up to 12, and just seeing how that animation feels as it moves, right? I want it to feel genuine. I want it to have good flow between the individual frames, and that was, you know, that was the goal. So that's what we tried to do. Here we are again showing a progress shot. Dirt looks roughly the same. Goat's mostly colored in. You should be able to see his animation much more clear. He stands out now. I gave him little colored hooves. Just did that with color, didn't draw those out. And now we're just going in and finishing up all the rest of the color work. So yeah, it's coming along, and we are almost done. So I knew I wanted him to be kind of a shade of green. Green's my favorite color, and all the words in the font are green, so he's kind of a gray green to bounce a little bit. And then I go in and I actually give him some spots, some splotches, that's the word, because I want him to be a little bit more dynamic. You see I played with like a belly stripe, and eventually I even tried to put like a dot on his head, but I gave up on that because it was hard to track that, and I didn't think it was worth it. I liked where he was sitting. But yeah, as you can see here, like even those spots and stuff on his ear, I had to track those each individual frame to make sure that they all lined up in the movement so they didn't feel like they were jittering around his face. And I don't know if I said, but animation's tedious, man. Real tedious, but it's cool. I like it a lot. You can't argue with the result. I mean, it's really cool to have something that feels like it's alive. That's always the goal, right? It's always, even your 2D drawings that don't move, you always want them to feel like they have movement, like they have expression, like they are a snapshot of a living thing, right? So to actually animate and have that's the goal. You can see there's a shadow goat above. I had put him there as a color reference while I was going through each individual frame, just to make sure I had a point to go back to if I needed to, just so I could see like where those color shapes started, so I could skew the rest of the images to have that same color. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But almost at the end here, so we'll go into a final live playthrough, and you'll see my specs shown on the top, and those will show how many strokes, how long this took, this part, and let me be clear, that's how long just me working in Procreate. That doesn't take all the account of all the time I spent in Keynote, mocking out the base intro animation, learning about how all of that worked. I never used Keynote, downloaded it, watched a bunch of videos. I watched videos on tips for how to animate in Procreate, just so I could get a better understanding. But yeah, you can see 29 hours up to this point so far, so it's a lot. I thought I made fast and good progress for what I did, but it's still a lot of tedious time where you're just nose down going at it. But yeah, that's it. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's cute and interesting enough. Again, this is just the beginning, so I hope this intro is still sparking your interest, because there's a whole second part, and I'm going to use it in every video, so I hope you like it. We'll see. But yeah, that's the video. If you did like it, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I always appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the videos we have here. We got more coming. And yeah, until next time. See you then.
I'll do it. I swear. It doesn't matter if no one ever writes down there. I will write down there, and he will know my fears. My fears. He will know his own fears, because I'm coming for his ass. Eh? Fuck.